South Florida is the epicenter of two big stories this week: an exponential rise in COVID cases, almost all the most serious among the unvaccinated, and the historic opportunity to support change in Cuba. And we begin today with that double dose for one of South Florida's members of Congress. All three of South Florida's Republican reps are Cuban American, including Carlos Gimenez of Miami, who is with us live. Congressman, good morning. Great to have you with us.
Always great to be here, Glenna. How are you doing?
Good, thank you, and a lot to talk about. So we have to begin with the COVID question, Congressman, because everyone watching is touched by what's going on right now. Obviously, COVID, vaccinations, that's not a political topic. And yet there is a touch of politics to it, because this week we really heard a very different message coming from our Republican elected leaders, who really till this time have been dealing with vaccinations as a personal choice. That's been the message. And this week we heard very strongly the governor and congressmen and women come out, especially to say, get the vaccine, get it now, it's safe. I want to get your take on that.
I've always been a pro-vaccine person. That we need to thank the previous administration actually for putting out this 3 vaccines in less than a year. That's unheard of. And so I've always been I've had trust in the vaccines. I've taken the vaccine. I had COVID. I had the monoclonal antibodies also injected. I had to wait about 3 months though, until after I cleared the virus, before my doctor advised me to take the vaccine. But both my wife and I took the vaccine, and we urge everybody to take the vaccine. Vaccines in general, they have, there's been some word about vaccinations even before the COVID, vaccinations, where people are anti-vaccine. And I just think that maybe they have a good reason to be, but I haven't found one yet for not taking the COVID-19 vaccine.
I want to show you a graphic we can put up so everyone can see. The numbers tell this incredible story of this gulf between who is vaccinated in the parties. This is an ABC Washington Post poll. So Democrats, 86% nationwide, we're talking about, of Democrats are vaccinated. And among Republicans, 45%, almost half, are vaccinated. So when you couple that with the knowledge of, let's take a look at this question too. When asked when will you probably decline the vaccination, Democrats, 6% of them said they'd probably decline, and 47% of Republicans said that they would probably decline still. And so when we know this week, when we're hearing that the most serious cases, 95% of the cases that are in the ICU are unvaccinated people, what do you make of that?
I think that, we need to get more of that information out. I don't know why this is an ideological thing. It really shouldn't be an ideological thing. Actually, it was a Republican president who developed the vaccines.
It was.
So,
and warp speeded it through.
We should trust that, right? And so for Republicans that aren't trusting vaccine, but maybe, it has to do with vaccinations in general, and they don't trust vaccinations and they think there's something else going on. But I'm telling I'm urging everybody who's not vaccinated to get vaccinated. Look, there also been some reports of some adverse reactions from some folks, but it's not going to be, the worst, of the COVID-19. You're rolling the dice with COVID-19. Sometimes you get it and it's mild and nothing happens, but sometimes you get it and the worst happens and you may die from it. And so, everybody knows somebody who has, perished from COVID-19. I know the the tragedy that happened to the Monroe County commissioner, where he himself and his wife and his daughter, all got it, and they had some tragic results out of that. And so, look, I urge everybody to get the vaccine. If you're over 12 years old, get the vaccine, and even if you're young, get the vaccine, because that means that if you're vaccinated, there's a more than a very high threshold that you will not get even the D variant, especially if you take, the Pfizer or the Moderna, but and then you won't pass this on to somebody in your family who may not be vaccinated, and then who could have tragic consequences. And so, look, like I said, I've taken the vaccine. My wife has taken the vaccine. Everybody I know is taking the vaccine, but there are some folks that just don't want to take the vaccine.
So, and as you said, you're not quite sure why they wouldn't, and you're giving some really good information, and yet there is misinformation and disinformation that is quantifiably likely the reason that there are people who just don't trust what they hear on television from what they might call mainstream media. They don't trust government. You and I had a conversation when we bumped into each other about a month ago about a big concern about censorship on social media. And that was before we were facing what we're facing now. But in the light of so much misinformation on social media about COVID-19, you were very concerned about social media's companies being able to censor or pull information at their discretion.
Right.
Would this change your mind somehow?
No, it would not. I'll tell you why. The best way to deal with misinformation is more information. Now, I don't want some kid in San Francisco determining what's right or wrong. What's the truth? Okay. And so you start off with this, which sounds, wow, hey, we need to get this misinformation out. But where does it end? I mean, you have some pretty good examples, okay, of what was used to be, well, that's misinformation. Turned out to be not misinformation, turned out to be true. And so I am totally against censorship, except for when you're yelling fire, in a crowded theater where you're going to cause a panic and kill people, okay, when there is no fire.
So do you think that this might rise to that occasion? Because COVID is but aside from an individual health issue, it is now becoming a public health issue. Would that rise to fire in a theater level?
No, I think that the best thing, again, is to have more information. I also believe that some of this COVID stuff and some of this resistance to vaccination stems not from COVID, it stems from before. There are a lot of mothers that are hesitant to vaccinate their children, thinking that it causes them some problems later in life. And so the whole deal with vaccinations isn't just COVID related. It's COVID related, but it's also vaccinations in general. There are a bunch of people that just don't trust vaccines, period. That's it. And so, no, I think the best thing for that is more information. Look, Glenna, it's a very slippery slope. And these tech companies have been using, well, this is misinformation. Experts have said, and all that. And how many times have we found experts to be completely wrong? This country wasn't built on censorship. This country was built on an openness and a debate of ideas and information. And you and I are smart enough to determine what's right or wrong. And frankly, when people say, well, hey, we need to guard against misinformation, what you're saying is that, the American people aren't smart enough to figure it out for themselves.
Well,
I don't. I think the American people are smart enough to figure it out for themselves as long as they have the information. And some people, look, we have 315 million people, all right? You're going to have some people that no matter what you tell them, all right, are going to say, well, no, I don't believe that. I'm sure there's still some flat earth people around, okay? And so after all the evidence, they said, no, I still don't believe that. Well, we give you all the information. You have to determine for yourself what you think is right.
I know that is a wonderful segue, disinformation and lack of information and trying for more information to get us into our Cuba discussion. I want to take a quick break first just for the continuity of it. So sit tight. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We are back with Congressman Carlos Gimenez, Republican from Miami. I want to talk a little bit about the historic effort in Cuba right now and what the U.S. can do to support those protesting for freedom. Congressman, you've been in the middle of press conferences and protests. We just got notice of another one tomorrow that you'll be part of. And so this week, President Biden did his first move and actually targeted sanctions more individually against the head of Cuba's armed forces and the black berets that are operating now on the streets to target people who are protesting. So I want to get your take on that. Good move, not enough, good start. I'm kind of predicting what you're going to say. Go for it.
I think the best thing that the president has done is he hasn't undone things like the disaster that happened in the southern border when he undid all of President Trump's policies there.
Oh, well, wait a second, but on the Cuba front, he didn't undo any of President Trump's
that's why I said it was good. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's a good thing, okay, that he hasn't undone the Trump policies yet, okay, because there was this thing that anything that had the name Trump on it must have been bad. And so he hasn't done that. I applaud him for that. This step to sanction some of the people that are responsible for this horrific repression that's going on in the island. I think that's a good step. Is it going to make a difference? Probably not. But look, here's what we need to do. We as a country need to find the technology to restore internet connectivity inside the island, not only for them to be able to communicate amongst themselves, the Cuban people, but also for the Cuban people to be able to show images and communicate with the outside world of what is actually happening in Cuba. Two, we need to support those dissident leaders in a financial way, however we can. We have to continue with the tight sanctions that we have against the regime. We have to make sure that the regime somehow doesn't get access to credit that it doesn't deserve, and it doesn't deserve any credit because it doesn't pay its bills. And those are the things that we need to push forward. And so the Cuban people are not asking for remittances. They're not asking for a vaccine. They're not asking for food. They're asking for freedom.
Right, and so
America should be the leader and gather our allies and say, look, this is a repressive, brutal regime that's been in power for 60 years. The people have told you they don't want this regime. We need you to help us to change and to bring about change in Cuba.
Okay, so let's just, Congressman,
okay?
I hate to interrupt you, but we only have this much time, so I want to be able to get in a lot as possible. So, okay, let's go backwards a little bit. In my reporting lifetime, the U.S. has been very supportive of the concept of democracy in Cuba. The embargo has been in place in my lifetime. Supporting dissidents, the U.S. has done that. Let's go back to the restoring the internet, because it's the internet and social media that was the game changer 2 weeks ago. And that's not as easy as it might sound, as the Biden administration is finding out, as you and your colleagues who have floated that idea is finding out. So specifically, what more can happen on that front as we're looking for that technology that doesn't really exist without violating international law at the moment? So what, practically speaking, what are we not doing? What is the Biden administration not doing that can be done?
I'm saying the good thing they're not doing is they're not undoing the Trump administration policies. I think that those are very good and very effective. So I like him to just keep those going. The sanctions on those individuals responsible for brutality, I think, are good. Are they going to be effective? Probably not, because they're not going to leave Cuba. But it's something. We need to really focus in on giving the people of Cuba a way to communicate amongst themselves and with the outside world. That is the key. And you were right, Glenna. This was internet-based uprising. And that's why the Cuban government shut it down, as quickly as they did. They knew what was going on. And so we need that for them to communicate with themselves and communicate with the outside world. And we're looking for ways to get that done. There may be applications that we can send to the Cuban people or create for the Cuban people to circumvent, what the Castro regime is doing. And I call it Castro regime because really the Castros are still in charge, but the communist regime in Cuba are doing. And so I always number one thing I always say, hey, we need to restore internet inside Cuba, because that I think is key to bringing about change in Cuba.
You have said that repeatedly, absolutely. And just want to get you on the record in the 30 seconds we have left. Do you foresee a time sooner or later when you would support military intervention?
I think military intervention should always be on the table. You should never remove it. That's an option, all right? Is it something that you're going to use now? No, but you never say never. And so I foresee a day where you see images coming out of Cuba where, you have wholesale, slaughtering of people, et cetera, and then the United States just can't stand by, or the world can't just stand by and see it happen. So yeah, I can foresee a day like that, but that's not right now. The military option should be on the table, should always be on the table, because that's always, an option that you should have. It's a card that you play, but you play very, very carefully, and you don't play it that often.
Congressman Carlos Gimenez, thank you. As always, we value your time, and it's great to see you.
No, nice seeing you too, Glenn.